All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today we're diving into something called quality management. It sounds a bit corporate, I know, but trust me, it's this invisible force that literally decides whether you love a product or you want to throw it against a wall. Yeah, think about it. That amazing feeling you get from a product that's just perfect versus that sinking feeling when something falls apart the second you get it home. That's what we're talking about. And it is not an accident, it is absolutely a science. Okay, so let's get into it. What do we even mean when we say quality? Because in the world of business and making things, it has a very, very specific meaning. And here it is. It's not about being fancy or expensive. Quality is all about one thing, meeting, or even better, exceeding what the customer expects. For a long time, a lot of North American companies kind of lost sight of this. But then, in the 80s, these incredibly reliable cars and electronics started showing up from Japan, and suddenly everyone had to learn this lesson, and fast. Because at the end of the day, people vote with their wallets, and they were definitely voting for quality. So here's where it gets really interesting. Quality isn't just one big thing. It's actually two sides of the same coin. First, you've got design quality. Think of this as the recipe or the blueprint. Does it have the right features? Does it feel good in your hand? Is it designed to last? But a great recipe is useless if you can't cook, right? That's where process quality comes in. This is all about the execution. Can we actually build this thing perfectly without messing it up every single time? You gotta have both. A great design with a sloppy process is a disaster.
So, where did all these ideas come from? Well, they didn't just pop up out of thin air. They came from a handful of absolute geniuses, true gurus who completely changed the game. So let's meet these pioneers.
And this is a great way to see how it all unfolded. It really kicks off way back in the 1920s with a guy named Walter Shewhart, who started using statistics to control quality. Then, after World War II, you get these giants, Deming, Juran, Crosby, and Feigenbaum, who each came along and added a critical piece to the puzzle that we now know as modern quality management. Let's start with Philip Crosby, because his big idea is a real head-scratcher at first. Quality is free. I mean, how can that be, right? It seems like it should cost more to make something better. But Crosby's point was brilliant. He said the real cost isn't in making things well. The real cost is in all the unquality things. The mistakes, the waste, the returns, the angry customers. And here's how his logic breaks down. It's built on these two super simple but really powerful ideas. First, zero defects. The only acceptable standard is perfection. And second, do it right the first time. Because think about it. Every single time you have to fix something or scrap a part or handle a return, you are just lighting money on fire. Money would have kept if you'd just done it right from the beginning. Okay, so next up is Joseph Juran. He took these ideas and gave us a powerful tool to figure out where to focus our energy. You've probably heard of it even if you don't know the name. It's called the Pareto Principle. You might know this as the 80-20 rule. And what Juran figured out is that in almost any situation, the vast majority of your problems, we're talking like 80% of your defects, come from a very small number of causes, maybe just 20%. This is a huge deal. It means you don't have to boil the ocean and fix everything at once. If you can just identify and fix that critical 20% of causes, you can make 80% of your problems just disappear. It's the ultimate work smarter, not harder strategy. And now we come to the big one, maybe the most legendary quality guru of them all, W. Edwards Deming. This is the guy who went to Japan after World War II and completely transformed their manufacturing industry. His core idea was a total game changer. He said, stop waiting until the end of the assembly line to inspect for mistakes. That's too late. You have to build quality into the process from step one. And then, you never stop improving that process. Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, but what about the money? What does this mean for the bottom line? Well, all these gurus basically said the same thing. Quality isn't an expense, it's an investment. And to really get that, we need to look at the true cost of quality and the cost of not having it. First, you've got prevention costs. I like to call this the smart money. This is all the cash you spend up front to stop problems before they even start. We're talking about things like training your employees really well, designing a smarter workflow, or buying better equipment. This is pure do it right the first time thinking. Next up, we have appraisal costs. This is basically the cost of checking your work as you go. You know, paying inspectors, running tests, checking measurements. It's necessary for sure, but like Deming said, the better you get at prevention, the less you need to spend here. All right, now we get to the painful stuff, the cost of failure. Internal failure costs. This is what happens when you catch a mistake before it leaves the building. Which is good, I guess, but it's still expensive. You've got to pay someone to fix it, or even worse, you just have to throw the whole thing in the scrap heap. It's a total waste of time, materials, and money. And last, the one that keeps CEOs up at night, external failure costs. This is the absolute nightmare scenario. The mistake gets out. The defective product is in the customer's hands. Now you're talking about massive costs. Product recalls, warranty claims, lawsuits. But honestly, the biggest cost is the one you can't even put a number on. Your reputation, the trust you've lost. That's the stuff that can sink a company. So let's just boil this all down. You can really put all these costs into two simple buckets. On one side, you've got the costs of conformance. That's the money you spend to get it right, prevention and appraisal. And on the other side, the costs of non-conformance. That's the penalty you pay for getting it wrong, internal and external failures. It's really that simple. The cost of doing it right versus the cost of messing up. And this is the money shot right here. This visual tells the whole story. Look at that. You make a relatively small investment in prevention and appraisal, and in return, you slash those enormous, potentially company-killing failure costs. This is exactly what Philip Crosby was talking about. Quality isn't free because it costs nothing. It's free because the money you invest up front pays for itself 100 times over by saving you from disaster later. Okay, so we get the why. Investing in quality is a no-brainer. But what about the how? How do companies actually make this happen day to day? Well, they use proven systems and tools to build this idea of continuous improvement right into their DNA. And one of the most foundational tools comes from Deming himself. It's called the PDCA cycle. Plan, do, check, act. It's so simple, it's beautiful. First, you plan a change you think will make things better. Then you do it, but just on a small scale, like a little experiment. Next, you check the results. Did it work? Did it make things better? And if it did, you act on it. You roll out the change on a bigger scale. And the most important part? You start the cycle all over again. It's a never-ending loop of getting better. And over the decades, these basic ideas have been built into these big formal systems that you've probably heard of. Things like total quality management, or TQM, which is all about getting everyone in the company involved. There's ISO 9001, which is a global standard. And of course, Six Sigma, which is super heavy on data and statistics. But you know what? At their core, they're all built on the exact same principle we've been talking about from these gurus. All right, as we start to wrap this up, I want to leave you with one final, incredibly powerful idea. This one comes from another one of the gurus, Armand Feigenbaum. He came up with this concept he called the hidden plant. Just picture it. He said that inside every factory, there's another invisible factory. And its only job, its entire reason for existing, is to fix the mistakes the first factory made. Think about that. Maybe 20, 30, even 40% of your company's effort and capacity isn't making new things for customers. It's just a shadow operation fixing errors. It's the definition of waste. And that's really the big question I want to leave you with, because this isn't just about car factories or software companies. Think about your own work, your own life. Where is your hidden plant? How much of your day, your week, your energy is just wasted on redoing tasks, fixing simple mistakes, or dealing with the consequences of not getting it right the first time? Because finding that hidden plant in your own work and figuring out how to shut it down, well, that's the real secret to quality.